all these behavioral problems, the ADHD. You get the kids off red dye and sugar and candy and nerds candy and white bread, and they suddenly get good food. And, I mean, if I give my kids processed sugar, we're out at an event, okay, birthday party, have a piece of cake, they're a demon the rest of the day. Don't ever give them cakes and stuff and processed stuff, they're angels. I mean, it is like clockwork. ADHD, give them speed to burn their brain out. Give them serotonin reuptake inhibitors. I mean, what do you think from what you just heard? Again, you are a natural drug formulator, compounding pharmacist, before that a mainline pharmacist, one of the most successful there in Colorado. Ben Fuchs, introduce him for those that don't know who he is. He works and advises us at InfoWarsHealth.com or InfoWarsTeam.com. But what did you just think of what you just heard?
There's so many ways you can go with this. First of all, post-traumatic stress syndrome is something that we're all dealing with because we're all being traumatized and we all have stress. And even though, according to the World Health Organization, there's 12,000 different diseases, there's really only one disease, and that is the disease of traumatic stress. And what our veterans are experiencing are an exaggerated version of what we're all experiencing, which is why the single most important strategy for restoring yourself back to health and wellness is to tell the body via nutritional supplementation, via oxygenation, via correct foods, via detoxification, to tell the body that all is okay, that all is right in the world. When the body perceives that it is under stress, that there is a trauma, there's a trauma that's occurring, it will begin to shut down growth processes, healing processes, and repair processes. Fluoride in the water, preservatives in foods, excitotoxins, processed foods, processed breads and grains, purified sugars, these all exacerbate the stress response in the body. When the body is under stress, it doesn't do its best work. It doesn't heal. First and foremost, I would have these people activating their relaxation chemistry. The body's got two kinds of chemistry. It's got relaxation chemistry and it has stress chemistry. And for the vast majority of our chemistry needs to be in the relaxation mode. The stress mode is only for emergencies. You have to figure out how to access this relaxation chemistry. And the good news is it's not expensive. The good news is you can do it for free.
But the system won't tell you. They overdrive. They get into a stress economy. We all do it, especially professionals. And then they can never get out of it. You've got to learn how to get into a joking economy. That's why I do that sometimes. You've got to learn to go out and have fun as well. And they don't want people to know there's a cure.
I'll tell you one of the simplest, easiest ways to activate relaxation chemistry. The biggest emergency to the body is lack of oxygen. Something as simple as exercise and deep breathing techniques can send the message, the biochemical message to the body that all is right in the world and can begin to activate the relaxation response and the healing and growth and repair response. For folks who are dealing with PTSD, just experiment, try this. Deep breathing techniques for 60 seconds. It won't cost you anything, and in 60 seconds, your blood pressure will drop, your blood will start to thin, you'll get more nutrients.
Breathing exercises, basic exercise, not eating MSG, not eating aspartame. I mean, just the whole society's falling apart. It's all coming out, even CBS News. Oh, aspartame does give you diabetes. You were talking about that on the show a month ago, Ben.
You know, here's the idea. There's this notion that to take care of yourself and to stay healthy, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of work. The message that I want people to understand is it is simple and easy to restore your body back to health because it's in the body's nature to heal. Every time you cut yourself, you are witness to this healing process. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to take any special potions. You don't need any prescription drugs. The skin just does its duty. It heals itself. When you break a bone, a place where you broke it is stronger after it heals than it was before it broke. Not only is it in the body's nature to heal itself, it's in the body's nature to get stronger when it is under certain amounts of stress. This is how exercise works.
Now they're trying to get rid of vaginal birth. Someday it'll be a conspiracy that women ever had babies, period. They'll be grown in tanks.
Let me tell you about the disaster of Caesarean sections. When a baby is born, he is coated with bacteria, and that bacteria become that baby's personal microbiome for producing vitamins and detoxifying food and processing anything that the kid eats for the rest of his life. A baby that's born non-vaginally through Caesarean section is going to be compromised at the digestive system level for life. He's going to be running higher risks for degenerative disease, and this is a baby that's going to be forced to interact with the medical
model. And they don't want him getting taking the colostrum that is every immunity the woman and her entire genetic line had, an entire vaccination all the way back to the beginning of humanity, don't get that either.
That's right. And there, how many mothers are told to give their babies formula because there's not enough nutrients in breast milk? I just got a Facebook message from a guy who said just that. He went to the doctor. The doctor said, well, breast milk's okay, but there's not enough nutrients in it. We need to give you a B12 and we need to give your baby a B12 and fluoride injection. Folks, this is not only stupidity and bad science and bad biochemistry. It's killing us. It's costing us our quality of life. It's so tragic and it's so unnecessary. If you do things like, number one, practice deep breathing. Number two, get on a nutritional supplement program. Number three, not interacting with the corporate domesticating food, the food that gets us fat and the food that keeps us dumb and stupid. Simple things like that can restore ourselves back to health because it's the way the body is constructed. It's the divine force at work, and it doesn't need our help. It simply needs raw materials to do its work. You know, it's a stress response that we're talking about. To the body, there's only two kinds of stresses, Alex. There's the stress of being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or a lion, and there's the stress of starvation. So what the body will do when it's under stress, and it doesn't know that there's stress from the government and stress from the IRS and stress from our families and stress from our foods. It just thinks we're going to be eaten by a tiger or we're going to starve. So number one, it will send us out on a one-pointed hunt for food, and it'll put that food on our bellies. It'll store it as fat, and it won't allow us to lose it. Lose that fat because it thinks a famine is about to approach. Number two, it's going to activate the chemistry that will protect us from being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Number one, it's going to divert blood from the digestive system and from the brain into the legs so that we can run. And number two, it's going to clot the blood and it's going to cause hypertension so we don't bleed to death. And when you think about it, all of the diseases that we're suffering from, all the degenerative diseases that we're suffering from are the result of lack of circulation, stagnation, blood clotting, obesity, and oh, by the way, you can throw in a shrinking of the brain, the intellectual centers of the brain, and a slowing down of the immune system.
There was a big study on that. Geneticists, where the IQ is dropping across the world.
No surprise, Alex. All right, the biggest problem that we're dealing with is what you've been talking about for the last couple of hours, this idea of post-traumatic stress syndrome. Post-traumatic stress syndrome simply means that we're stressed after trauma. From birth forward, the human body is attacked with things like fluoride in the water, excitotoxins in the food, nutritionally deficient foods, sugar, et cetera, not to mention pharmaceutical drugs and deadly medical procedures. It makes perfect sense that we would all be dealing with a type of post-traumatic stress. So the first and most important thing we can do if we're dealing with a degenerative disease or to prevent degenerative disease is to figure out how to tell the body that we are safe, that everything is okay from a survival standpoint. And the first thing you need to do, or we need to do, is understand the breathing processes we talked about before. The biggest emergency to the body from a physical standpoint is lack of oxygen. Over time, as we are bombarded with stress, we begin to contract our body, and by the time we're in our 20s or 30s, we're filled with these microscopic little contractions that are pools of hypoxia, pools of low oxygen. And these pools of low oxygen accumulate, and the body over time believes that it's about to die. So the first and most important thing we can do to activate the body's relaxation chemistry, healing chemistry, built-in healing chemistry, is to deep breathe and to blow off carbon dioxide. Now, I don't want to beat this to death, but that's probably the single most important thing we can do. The second most important thing we can do is to figure out how to eat less calories and get more nutrients. The average American diet is the exact opposite. It's more calories and less nutrients. And you and I have talked about this before. When the body gets calories without nutrients, it continues being hungry. We have a shutoff center in our brain, an appetite suppressant center in our brain. And this appetite suppressant center in the brain is dependent on nutrients and protein, and to a certain extent fats as well. So making sure that you're getting enough protein, making sure you're getting enough fats in the form of essential fatty acids and saturated fats, by the way, like coconut oil, and making sure that you're getting enough micronutrients is the second most important strategy that you can use. And not only is it an important strategy for helping turn on the relaxation chemistry, but it's a wonderful strategy for building your immune system and allowing your body to lose weight naturally. In fact, the third most important strategy that we can use is to refuse to interact with the corporate machine that could care less about our health. Your doctor, the medical model, the corporate medical model, corporate food, these people have could care less whether we live or die as long as they extract our money. To refuse to interact with the McDonald's of the world, the Taco Bells of the world, the Kaisers of the world, to refuse to participate in their scam is the third most important strategy that we can use. And let me tell you something. When we pass by McDonald's, we don't want to be driving through. We want to be driving by, and as we're driving by, we want to be giving them the finger because they are truly the enemy of humanity. And if we participate in eating the fast food and eating the corporate swill and not supplementing using a nutritional supplement program, we are complicit in our own demise. The third thing, drink more water, clean water, filtered water, and stay away from toxic fluoride, whether it's in the form of toothpaste or whether it's in the form of drinking water. One of the most insidious ways that we pollute, humanity is being polluted, is by fluoride in the drinking water for babies. If you go to Walgreens or these Rite Aid, these drugstores and convenience stores, you'll find nursery water, which is packed with fluoride. How a mother can voluntarily give their baby toxic fluoride in light
I got to stop you on this because you're nice and say they may be doing it on purpose. They're eugenicists. I've got all the globalists bragging how we deserve it. The Journal of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association were forced 6 years ago to say that under 5 should not drink fluoride and should not brush with fluoride because they had to admit the cancer and the dental fluorosis. It is a fact that it reduces IQ. It is, and they put huge amounts, like 3 or 4 parts per million in that, and we forced them, last year to finally cut it from 1.3 to 0.7 parts per, million or billion. They had to cut basically in half the amount, or a little bit more than half, of what they put in the water, and they're banning it as a pesticide now because it bioaccumulates. I mean, this is the ultimate hoax. This chemical weapon in the hydrofluorosilicic acid range, which makes the sodium fluoride, which you do need a tiny amount of, hyper-poisonous and cumulative and stick in your bones. I mean, come on, pharmacist Ben Fuchs, that's on purpose.
Well, you know, one of the best ways to protect ourselves from fluoride is to make sure you're getting enough nutritional supplements, especially iodine, especially vitamin C, and especially vitamin E. And by the way, this whole notion of iodized salt and all we need is a tiny little bit of iodine in our salt and we won't get goiter is another health scam that does disservice to the human race. Iodine is not just a thyroid hormone, it's a critical hormone for the pineal gland, which is like a fluoride vacuum cleaner. If you're getting fluoride and you're giving your kids fluoride and you're not getting enough iodine, you are guaranteeing that your pineal gland will be shrunken and atrophied like an old man by the time you're 10, by the time you or your kid is 10 or 12 years old. So making sure that you're taking care of nutritional supplements is once again one of the best ways to protect yourself against toxicity. By the way, when it comes to water, there's not just fluoride in the water, Alex. There's measurable amounts of cardiovascular medications, of calcium channel blockers, and of antidepressants in the water, and other psychotropic medications in the water. I was just reading an article this morning that talked about fish having autism genes turned on by swimming in water that has antipsychotic and antidepressant medication in it. Literally, fish have genes, autism genes, and those genes get turned on by having the fish swimming in antidepressant-laden water. And this is the kind of stuff that we're drinking. Not to mention if you go ahead and voluntarily take an antidepressant or an antipsychotic drug. And this whole idea, by the way, of Prozac and serotonin reuptake inhibitors is one of the biggest scandals in a whole litany of scandals.
Let me stop you for just a moment because this is so incredible. Last week, Melissa Melton on the Nightly News covered the London Guardian, big studies, headline, fish committing suicide because of serotonin reuptake inhibitors in the water. They will swim right up to bigger fish and be eaten. They will swim right up into people's nets. And what did they report 5 years ago in a federal study? Shrimp committing suicide because of Prozac. Prozac-type drugs. But here's the deal. They're finding a generic form of Prozac in water supplies at levels higher than it should be even for runoff, Ben. They're jacking the water with Prozac. There it is. Pharmacological waste runoff causing shrimp and other marine life to commit suicide. Now, that's from 2012. You guys have got to pull up. I remember the exact headline. It was something like fish committing suicide on Prozac. I mean, of course.
You hit the nail on the head with those two words. Of course. We cannot expect anything to be different. Look, if you're on a prescription medication, if anybody out there is on a prescription medication, take that medication and instead of swallowing it, chew it. Let that medication hit your taste buds and your tongue. It will taste like the most toxic, repulsive poison you could ever imagine. And the reason is, it is the most toxic, repulsive poison that you could ever imagine. And the fact that you're taking it in small enough doses that you don't notice a big-time emergency poison response doesn't make that stuff less poisonous. How can we have a healthcare system manned by healthcare professionals who are sworn to do no harm, that lives and subsists and does its work by poisoning people purportedly back to health? Where does this notion come from that we can pharmaceuticalize ourselves back to health and wellness? Alex, the word pharmaceutical itself, pharmaco, comes from the root word for what? Poison. You're literally, if we are taking these medications, and there's 4 billion of them, prescriptions served every year, annually in this country alone, and untold billions around the world, if we voluntarily participate in taking these poisons, we are complicit in our own demise. And folks, let me tell you something. Nutrients are what drugs dream they could be. When a drug goes to bed at night and has a fantasy, it fantasizes it's vitamin C or vitamin E or vitamin A, because these substances have the medicinal properties of the pharmaceutical agents with zero toxicity, zippo, zero. They keep trying to find people who die or have some kind of toxic response to nutrients, and they can't find them because it never happens. Yet we want to have more and more regulation on nutrients. We want to have, in the coming years, we probably will have, doctors tell us what kind and how much vitamins and nutrients we could take. And let me tell you something.
That's what they're pushing through the whole UN deal. That's official.
The whole Codex thing. That's exactly right. And in some countries, it's already started. In Germany and in Canada and in France, you can only get small amounts of vitamin C. You can only get small amounts of vitamin A. And if you want more, you got to have a doctor officially write you a prescription. And while we're on the subject...
Oh, yeah, Merck's now coming out just a few days ago officially saying you don't just need vaccines to be mandatory. Everyone needs to be on antidepressants. I mean, there's no end to the cuckoo-ness of these people.
It's cuckoo, right? It's absolutely nuts. But you know what, Alex? We have to take responsibility for our own health. We have to cease and desist from this abdication of responsibility for our health. We talk about the glory and the greatness of the human body, despite the fact that it seems like we are falling apart. Americans are the sickest culture in the history of the planet, despite the fact that we have the highest healthcare costs and more doctors per capita than any other country in the world. We're sicker than any other culture has ever been. But despite that, I have hope in the human body. I'm a lover of the human body. I've been studying the cells and studying tissues and studying the organs of the body since 1983 when I got into pharmacy school. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it is this. The human body is a healing system. It's a regenerating system. It is designed divinely to heal and renew itself on a moment-to-moment basis. And if we are not accessing this healing power, we are doing something wrong. And the fact of the matter is, friends, because of this built-in nature, because of this built-in healing nature of the human body, it is not difficult to access it. It's not difficult to access what is already there. We simply have to stop doing the things that cover this up. Most importantly, we have to stop interacting with the corporate swill that passes for food. McDonald's, Taco Bell, processed food, boxed foods, these need to be avoided like the plague. There is flat out no way we are going to be able to access our healing and health greatness as long as we are interacting with this corporate food lifestyle.
I get your take on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication.
Here's the deal. Anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication are, number one, like all pharmaceutical medication, they're poisons. Number two, depression and anxiety are not pharmaceutical issues. They're the manifestation, the psychological manifestation, the brain manifestation of an activated stress response. The body basically feels like it's dying. Now, when the body feels like it's dying, there's only two reasons that the body feels like it's dying. Number one, because it thinks it's starving to death, and number two, it thinks it's going to be eaten by a wild animal. The human body doesn't understand 21st century stresses because the human body is an evolutionary mechanism that has been around for millions of years. The IRS and our dysfunctional families and the police state and gluten intolerance, these are all very recent phenomena to the human body. So when we have a stress that is induced by something psychological, like something that's going on in the society, or a stress from prescription drugs, or a stress from gluten, to the body, all it knows is that it's either about to die because it's going to be eaten by a tiger, or it's about to die because it's starving to death. So what we call depression and we call anxiety are the psychological manifestations of a body in crisis, a body that feels like it's about to die because it's about to be eaten or it's starving to death. So what do you do? How do you deal with these kinds of things? Well, first of all, the most important thing to deal with anxiety and depression is to somehow send the biochemistry the message that all is okay, that your survival is not at stake. And there's several ways to do that. One of the simplest and one of the easiest is to practice deep breathing techniques. Deficiencies in oxygen will trigger this stress response that shows up as anxiety and depression faster than almost anything because our need for oxygen is such that 3 minutes without oxygen and we're dead. So as soon as oxygen levels drop and carbon dioxide levels go up, our body will initiate the stress response, which will show up physiologically as hypertension, high blood pressure, blood clotting, digestive distress, immune suppression, and will show up psychologically, mentally, as depression and anxiety. Anybody who gets panic attacks or anxiety attacks will tell you, right before their anxiety attack, they go into deep hyperventilation, fast breathing. This hyperventilation and this fast breathing initiates the anxiety and initiates the panic attack. If you're dealing with anxiety and panic attacks, don't take my word for it. Right before you go into a panic attack, you feel like one's coming on. If you're dealing with anxiety, practice deep breathing techniques. Number one, what you'll end up doing is you'll open up your blood vessels. Number two, you're going to thin your blood so you'll get more oxygen to tissues and you'll get more nutrients to tissues. And number three, you'll drop your brain wave states from the beta wave state, which is a fast-moving state that's involved in problem solving and distress, and you'll drop it into the hypnagogic state slowly, so-called alpha state. This is all done with something as simple as deep breathing. You don't need a doctor for it. You don't need a drug for it. You don't need to interface with the medical model at all for it. You don't need insurance for it, and it'll cost you zero. The next, second great strategy, and we've been talking about this on the bright side, for helping with depression or helping with anxiety or helping to tell the body that all is right in the world, is to get yourself out in the sun, to lay out in the sun without a sunscreen, without a sunblock. I'm not telling you to burn. Burning is never a good thing. But if you're not going to burn in 5 or 10 minutes, get yourself out in the sun. Number one, the sun stimulates anabolic chemistry. That is building chemistry. That chemistry of joy and happiness is also activated by the sun. And on top of all of that, when the sun hits your skin, you produce a hormone called serotonin, which many of you guys have heard of, which is converted into melatonin. Melatonin is a powerful relaxing substance, and it's an anti-cancer substance, and it's an anti-aging substance, and it's wonderful for dealing with anxiety or depression. These are two very simple strategies, breathing and getting out in the sun, that can allow you to access the body's relaxation chemistry, this anti-anxiety chemistry, for free without having to go to the doctor and without having to deal with an insurance program. Now, the third very effective way to deal with anxiety is to make sure that you're taking care of your nutritional needs and to make sure you're eating less calories. Now, these are two very important strategies that kind of go hand in hand. But remember, this emergency response that the body has is number one, to prevent us from being eaten by a tiger, and number two, to help us deal with starvation and famine. Nutritional deficiency tells the body that a famine is approaching. When we don't get vitamin C, when we don't get vitamin E, when we don't get enough essential fatty acids, when we don't get enough protein, the body thinks it's dying. The body thinks it's starving. The body thinks a famine is approaching, and this too will initiate and activate the stress response, which will show up physiologically as weight gain, blood clotting, hypertension, and will show up mentally and psychologically as depression and anxiety. So getting yourself on a nutritional supplement program, especially one that has concentrated nutrients that allow your body to access the nutrients without having to deal with the digestive process, can be a tremendous help for folks dealing with anxiety. So important that you'll notice results really quickly, especially in terms of the water-soluble vitamins, especially in terms of the B complex, which are water-soluble vitamins that are processed out of most foods. B complex, by the way, are intimately connected with mental health. A guy named Dr. Abram Hoffer wrote a book called Orthomolecular Psychiatry many years ago where he talked about using simple, plain old niacin, vitamin B3, to treat schizophrenia. And he treat it very effectively. Deficiencies in B vitamins are extremely common. One of the main reasons is because we're getting so much processed foods. All right, a couple people on hold that I want to get to, but before we do that, I want to tell you about a wonderful nutritional supplement that's super for the digestive system, and one we don't really talk about as being important for digestive health, and that's whey protein. Whey protein is obviously an important building protein. It's a component of milk. It contains fractions from the milk that are designed to build the baby's digestive tract. Remember, the baby is born, human babies and mammal babies in general, are born with premature digestive tract, and nature has a system designed to build the digestive tract via breast milk. Well, the component in breast milk that has the most building properties for the digestive tract is the whey fraction, and especially the whey protein fraction. So whey protein is not only a bodybuilder's favorite food, favorite supplement, super source of building amino acids, but it's also critical for digestive health and digestive wellness. Now, not only is it important for helping build the digestive tract, but there's also substances in whey protein that protect the digestive tract, especially against those lectins that we talked about in the last segment. Lectins are the sticky components on bacteria and sticky components that are found in vegetables that can stick or adhere themselves to the digestive tract. Whey protein has anti-lectin substances that can protect you from these lectin components in vegetables, and they can be whey protein can be especially effective if you're dealing with gluten intolerance. The gluten reaction is a lectin reaction. It's a sticky attachment to the intestine. There are ingredients in whey protein that can help dissolve that lectin attachment. I'm not saying 100% of the time it's going to work, but for a lot of folks, getting on a whey protein supplement can be a wonderful way to deal with gluten intolerance issues as well as any other lectin issues. And the neat thing about whey protein, and one of my favorite things about nutritional supplementation, is unlike prescription drugs that perhaps give you a little bit of purported benefit and a lot of side effects, nutritional supplements give you benefits, and instead of side effects, they give you side benefits. So if you take your whey protein for your digestive system, you're going to find that you're building better muscle, that you're eating less food, that you got a better immune system, and you're supporting circulatory system health as well. And that's one of the coolest things about getting yourself on a nutritional supplement program is you get multiple benefits, multiple health benefits rather than side effects.